At 10 years old, Rex had earned his rest. A German shepherd with a coat like blackened bronze and eyes sharp enough to stop suspects cold. Rex had served almost a decade in the city's elite K-9 unit. He'd found missing children, cornered armed criminals, and once pulled a man from a burning wreck just minutes before the car exploded. He wasn't just a working dog, he was a legend. But time had caught up. His joints ached more in the mornings. His gait was slower now. His once smooth stride now measured, deliberate. His hearing had faded just enough for Officer Daniel Reyes to notice. Daniel had seen it coming. They'd been partners since Rex was a pup. Trained together, served together, and for nearly 10 years. Daniel had trusted Rex more than he trusted most people. Through gunfire, chaos, and long nights parked in surveillance vans, Rex had been by his side. And in 3 days, Rex would be retired. Officially. The station was planning a send-off. Banners. Cake. Even a small medal ceremony. Officers joked about it, but not Daniel. For him, it wasn't just a retirement. It felt like losing a limb. "Are you ready, old man?" Daniel asked that morning as he filled Rex's bowl. Rex gave a soft wag of the tail and sat beside him, pressing his head gently against Daniel's leg. "You deserve this. Soft beds and belly rubs from now on. No more foot chases. No more freezing stakeouts." But even as he said the words, Daniel's throat tightened. Because he knew, Rex didn't understand retirement. What he understood was work, service, purpose. That afternoon, the call came. Lily Thompson, age 7, had gone missing during a family picnic at Hollow Ridge State Park. One moment she was playing by the trail. The next, she was gone. The park was vast, miles of forest, creeks, and cliffs, and the clouds were rolling in. Dark and heavy, rain was on its way. The kind of rain that would wash away every scent. The rescue teams were already on scene. Search and rescue dogs. Drones, volunteers, but no leads, no tracks, no trail. Daniel stood in the K-9 unit hallway, watching the rain begin to splatter on the windows. His captain approached. "It's getting ugly out there. Temps are dropping. If she's out there overnight." Daniel knew the rest. "She's just a kid," he said quietly. 7 years old. The captain sighed. "We've got every dog on duty out there already." Daniel didn't speak. He looked down the hall, where Rex sat in the kennel, calm, watching, like he was waiting for something. "I want to deploy Rex," Daniel said. The room went quiet. Another handler glanced up from her gear. "Dan, Rex is. I know. He's not active anymore, but he's the best we have." Still, the captain frowned. "He's not field cleared. He doesn't need to be. Just let him try." "Daniel, he's. Let him work." Daniel interrupted. "One last time." The captain hesitated, looked at Rex, then at the clock. The rain was falling harder now. The girl had been missing 3 hours. "Go. You've got until nightfall." They reached the park in 20 minutes. The scene was chaotic. Search teams organizing grids. Flashlights sweeping. A drone buzzing overhead. Lily's parents sat by an ambulance. The mother wrapped in a blanket. The father yelling into a phone. Daniel walked past them with Rex on the leash. The old dog was calm but alert. Rain soaked his fur in seconds. "This is her sweater," a rescue worker said, handing Daniel a soaked pink hoodie. "It's all we've got." Daniel crouched beside Rex, held the fabric to his nose. "Can you find her, buddy?" he asked softly. Rex sniffed, snorted, then paused. His body tensed. And then he pulled forward, nose to the ground. The handler beside them raised an eyebrow. "Well, I'll be." Daniel followed, heart pounding. Rex was tracking. They moved fast, down into the trees, over muddy paths and across slick leaves. Rex stayed focused, ears low, tail stiff. Rain poured down now in sheets. But the dog didn't stop. He crossed a creek, leapt over a fallen log, and turned sharply, away from the path. "She's off trail," Daniel radioed in. "We're going east, ridge side." There was no reply at first, only static. Then, "Copy. Stay safe." Rex slowed near a cluster of dense brush. He whined once. Daniel moved ahead and parted the branches. And froze. There, at the base of a tree, was a small pink shoe. Daniel's heart leapt. "Good boy," he whispered. "We're close." He radioed it in, voice tense. "We have sign. Moving in." The storm had become a roar now, thunder rumbling above them. And then, Rex stopped again. Ears up, head tilted, a sound in the wind. Not a cry, a whimper. Daniel held his breath. "Lily?" he called. "Lily, it's okay, we're here to help." Another faint whimper. Rex barked once, sharp, decisive, and pushed through the undergrowth. Daniel followed, pushing branches aside, and there she was, curled beneath a hollowed tree trunk, soaked, shivering, her face pale and tear-streaked. Her hands gripped the muddy earth like she'd been holding on for dear life. Daniel dropped to his knees. "Lily," he said gently, "you're okay now. You're safe." Rex approached slowly, tail wagging. Lily's eyes widened in shock. Then she reached out, her fingers brushing his soaked fur. "Doggy," she whispered. Daniel smiled through the rain. "That's Rex. He found you." The extraction team arrived minutes later, and Lily was wrapped in blankets and checked by paramedics. She had mild hypothermia, a twisted ankle, but she was alive and safe. As the team loaded her into the ambulance, her mother wept and held her tight. Rex sat beside Daniel, soaked and panting. The paramedic looked down. "That's your dog?" Daniel nodded. "He's retired." The medic gave a low whistle. Hell of a last shift. Back at the station, word spread fast. Officers clapped Daniel on the back. Someone brought Rex a steak. Real. Grilled. No questions asked. Even the captain shook his head in disbelief. "Damn good dog," he said quietly. Daniel knelt beside Rex later that night. Back in the quiet of the locker room. "You did it," he said, one last time. Rex laid his head in Daniel's lap. Not tired, not broken, just content. And Daniel wept, silently, with one hand buried in that thick, rain-soaked fur. Because some goodbyes are not endings. They're honors. The search had splintered. The storm was getting worse, loud, relentless, turning soil to sludge and trails to illusions. Thunder cracked overhead as the search teams split into sectors. Each unit took a slice of the grid, slowly combing through woods that now felt darker, heavier. Daniel Reyes tightened his rain jacket, slung his radio across his chest, and looked down at his aging partner. "Rex," he said quietly, "let's go, boy, one more time." The 10-year-old German shepherd wagged his tail once, briefly, then lowered his nose to the ground. They were following a faint line of footprints, a child's boot. Partially washed out, just deep enough to be promising. Sector D4, Daniel radioed in. "We've got what looks like a partial trail. Moving southeast. Copy. D4. Be advised. Rain is increasing. Check in every 10. The brush thickened as they moved. Leaves slapped at Daniel's face. Mud clung to his boots. And all the while, Rex led the way, pausing now and then, sniffing, adjusting, recalculating the path. Then the sky opened. Rain fell in sheets, blinding and cold, turning dirt to running streams. The trail vanished. Just like that. Rex stopped, stood still, ears twitching. Daniel dropped to one knee beside him. "We lost it." "Huh?" The dog didn't move. He simply stared ahead, blinking into the downpour. His chest rose and fell slowly, like he was deciding. Daniel's radio crackled. D4. Status. He lifted it. "We lost the trail. Rain's killing scent. We're regrouping." Before he could finish, Rex suddenly bolted left, crashing through a thick patch of brush like a ghost vanishing into the green. "Rex!" Daniel shouted, scrambling to his feet. "Wait! Come back!" He lunged after the dog. Slipping in the mud, the hill beneath him gave way. Daniel's boot lost grip, and he slid, hard, down the slope. Sharp rocks tore his sleeve. His shoulder slammed into a tree trunk before he tumbled into a shallow ravine. Landing hard, the world spun. He groaned, reaching for his radio. D4 to base. "I've lost visual on Rex. I've lost him. I repeat, I've lost Rex. I've taken a fall. No serious injury. But I don't know where he went." No answer. He tried again. Nothing but static. The storm had eaten the signal. High above, past the edge of the ridge, Rex ran. Through mud and branches and lightning-flashed brush. He moved like something much younger than 10. His paws splashed through puddles. Legs pounding the soft earth with purpose. He ignored the cold, the pain in his joints, the sting of wind. There was still a scent. Faint, broken, but not gone. Even the rain couldn't fully hide it. It clung to bark, hung low in the leaves, drifted between tree trunks like threads only a dog could read. Rex moved without waiting for permission, without waiting for a leash, without anyone telling him where or why. This was the job. This was the last mission. And he had chosen it himself. Back in the ravine, Daniel stood shakily, water dripping from his hair, mud streaking his arm. He tried climbing but slipped again. "Rex!" He shouted into the storm. "Rex! Come back!" His voice echoed into nothing. No bark returned. He switched radio channels, scanning for signal. Still dead. He sank to his knees, gripping the wet ground. "Come on," he whispered. "Please, come on." Images flashed through his mind. Rex as a pup, learning commands, bounding through tires, making his first bust. Rex sleeping with his head on Daniel's boot. Rex guarding a child while paramedics rushed in. Now running alone, out there, aging, tired, and still running. The thought broke something in him. "Don't do this to me," he said. "You don't have to be a hero anymore." But Rex wasn't listening. He was following something older than language. Rex leapt over a fallen log and skidded to a stop beneath a thick patch of ferns. He sniffed, paused, sniffed again. The scent was stronger here, clinging to the roots, anchored in the rain-soaked soil. He pushed forward, nose low, ears twitching. Every instinct screamed caution, but he didn't slow down. Lightning flashed, painting the trees in stark white for a breathless moment. Rex stopped again. His ears perked. A sound. A small, faint sob. He turned his head sharply. Listened. Another one. Not far. He moved, heart pounding, lungs dragging wet air. And then, he saw her. Lily, soaked, curled beneath a broken tree limb. Her lips trembling, her small frame shaking in the cold. She didn't move when he approached. She only looked up, wide-eyed, as Rex crawled close and lay down beside her. He nuzzled her gently. She reached out with weak fingers and grabbed his fur. "Doggy," she whispered. He lay still, curled around her, guarding her from the wind, from the dark, from the wild itself. And he waited, just as he always had. Back on the ridge, Daniel finally found a way up, using roots and low branches to pull himself out of the ravine. He reached level ground, panting, soaked through, arms scraped. The radio crackled back to life. All teams, weather easing, visibility improving. D4. Do you copy? Daniel raised it. This is D4. I lost Rex. He broke off during the downpour. I've got no visual. Pause. Then, we've got heat movement from a drone, Sector D6. Near Creek Bend. Canines confirmed. One large, one small. Could be them. Daniel didn't hesitate. He ran, limping, half sliding, chest burning. He cut through the undergrowth with nothing but adrenaline and hope. 15 minutes later, he found them. Rex, curled protectively around the girl. Both soaked but alive. Daniel dropped beside them. "Rex," he whispered. The dog raised his head slowly, panting, eyes tired, but alert. "I've got you," Daniel said. He radioed for evac. Then he reached down and touched Rex's head. "You found her." Rex closed his eyes for a moment. And rested. Not because the job was done, but because the mission had been worth it. The rain had slowed to a whisper, but the air held the bite of something deeper, a creeping cold that soaked through fur and skin and bone. The sun had dipped behind a wall of gray, and the wilderness shifted with the coming night. The birds stopped calling, the wind sharpened, weaving through rocks and dry branches like a silent warning. But Rex did not stop. His body ached. His paws were raw. Every breath came heavier than the last. And yet, he moved, through twisted trails, over slick stones, and finally, into the rocks. Ahead was a cluster of boulders, jagged and looming, a natural ravine, where the wind howled through cracks and narrow gaps like a distant voice calling. Rex paused, nose twitching. The scent was almost gone, scattered by the wind, swallowed by the storm, but a trace still lingered, warmth, fear, human. He followed it into the stone maze. There, tucked between two slanted slabs, he found it, a narrow crevice, and inside it, Lily. She was curled in on herself, knees drawn to her chest, head resting against a rock. Her lips were pale, her eyes fluttered open only briefly when the wind shifted. She didn't cry, she couldn't. Her throat was dry, her voice gone, her small body trembled violently. Her arms were wrapped around her chest, trying to hold in warmth that wasn't there. Then she saw him, a shape in the gloom. Wet, solid, familiar. "Doggy," she whispered, so faint it vanished in the wind. Rex didn't bark. He didn't move fast. He simply crawled in, squeezing his frame into the narrow cave until his body wrapped gently around hers. She didn't flinch. She reached one tiny, ice-cold hand and placed it on his back. Rex lowered his head beside hers. He could feel the tremor of her heartbeat, and she could feel the warmth of his chest rising and falling. Steady, like a lullaby made of breath. Outside, the wind screamed. Inside, he held her. Night fell hard. The temperature dropped quickly, bringing the chill of highland wind and wet stone. The little cave offered shelter, but barely. The stone floor was unforgiving. The cold bit through flesh and fur like knives. Rex shifted his weight, pressing closer to Lily, forming a shield with his body. He curled tighter, chest against her back, chin over her shoulder. She stopped shivering after a while. Her breathing slowed, but Rex's body trembled with effort. Not from fear, from the sheer force of will it took to stay still, to stay strong. Every breath came harder, every muscle burned. He was tired, more tired than he had ever been in his life. But he didn't close his eyes. Not yet. The night grew quieter. Lily's hand remained on his back. Now still, her head rested against his neck, cheek against damp fur. She had drifted into a fragile sleep, the kind that comes after exhaustion takes everything else. Rex felt her heartbeat through her shoulder. It was slow, but it was there. And so, he stayed, as still as stone, as warm as a memory, as silent as only a hero could be. He thought of nothing, not hunger, not pain, not the calls from the search teams still echoing miles away. He thought only of her, this small, fragile child, placed in his care by fate, or duty, or something beyond. He had been trained to track, to find, to protect, but no one had trained him for this. This stillness, this kind of sacrifice. His ears twitched once, faintly, a sound, far, far off, voices, wind. He couldn't tell any more. He just held her tighter. His own breath a slow whisper, the sound of strength fading. His eyes grew heavy, but he never moved. He never gave up. In the deep of night, when the wind howled through the stones and the stars blinked behind drifting clouds. The cave was silent, but not empty. Inside, a child breathed, and beside her, a dog guarded the only warmth left in the world. His heartbeat, steady, his body, unmoving, his eyes, soft, and the last of his strength, wrapped around her like a promise. At dawn, the world turned pale gray. A beam of light broke through the clouds and slipped through the crack in the rocks. Lily stirred. Her hand still rested on his side. Her breath, weak but alive, and Rex, still curled around her, did not move. Not until a voice echoed through the ravine. Lily, then another. Canine visual. Sector 6. We've found them. Boots on stone. Radios crackling. 2 heat signatures. Both close. Move in. And then, Daniel. His voice ragged. Frantic. Breaking. Rex. Rex. Do you hear me? They found the crevice within minutes. Lily's small form first, then the great, still body of the German shepherd pressed around her. Paramedics rushed forward, voices calm but urgent. She's alive, cold, dehydrated, but stable. And the dog? Someone whispered. Daniel dropped to his knees, reached into the crevice, touched Rex's head. It was still warm. Rex lifted his eyes, barely. But he saw him, and wagged his tail once. Just once. Then let his eyes close. Hours later, as the chopper lifted off with Lily and the team, the world moved again. But one thing remained forever still. A silent shape beneath the rocks. A hero who had not barked, or fought, or charged, but simply stayed, and saved a life, with nothing more than presence and love. The sun rose behind a curtain of clearing mist, casting pale golden light across the ridges and ravines of Hollow Ridge State Park. The storm had passed, but the land was left bruised, pools of rainwater in every hollow. The scent of damp bark and churned mud lingering in the air. Search crews were already mobilized again at first light. Visibility's good. One team lead radioed. Thermal drones up. Focus on the rock basin. Let's run the sweep again. They had combed that area before, but last night's rain and darkness had made it nearly impossible to navigate. Now, with the light restored and every second critical, they moved with urgency. In the control van, a technician sat up straight as the drone feed blinked with color. A blotch of pink, barely visible against the grays of stone and mud, flared on the screen. Stop. Back. Back 10 meters. He called out, there, that's fabric. Pink. A field officer leaned over his shoulder. Could be the scarf Lily was wearing. A call went out. All teams. Converge on drone marker D6. Possible contact. 2 bodies visible. Moving in. Daniel was already halfway there. He hadn't slept. Couldn't. His uniform was still stained with mud from yesterday's fall. But none of that mattered. When he heard the radio call, he ran, not walked, through thorn and brush. Legs burning, heart pounding. He followed the coordinates. And then he saw them. Rescue personnel crouched near a crevice between 2 large stones. Inside, wrapped in shadow, was a small child, and curled around her, Rex. Daniel froze. Then moved. Let me through, he barked, voice cracking. He pushed past the responders and dropped to his knees beside the opening. One rescuer carefully helped Lily out first. She blinked weakly, cheeks pale, lips trembling from the chill. But her eyes locked on Daniel as she whispered, "The dog. He stayed with me. And then he hugged me all night. I wasn't cold." Daniel swallowed hard. His gaze fell back to Rex. Still. Too still. Daniel reached in and gently lifted his partner's body into his arms. The fur was damp, heavy. "Rex," he whispered. No movement. "Come on, buddy. Wake up. You found her. You did it. You can rest now. But just not like this." A medic crouched beside him with a scanner. Quietly, professionally, she placed it against Rex's side. She paused, checked again, then gently shook her head. "I'm sorry," she said. No heartbeat, no breath, no life, only warmth, just fading. Daniel bowed his head, eyes stinging. His hand curled protectively around Rex's head as he leaned in close. "You did it," he said again, voice breaking. "You found her. You kept her warm. You saved her." He pulled Rex close to his chest and held him like a fallen soldier. The field fell silent. Lily was stabilized quickly. Mild hypothermia. But alert. Medics wrapped her in warm blankets, slipping a heating pad against her chest. Her parents were already on site, weeping as they clutched her hands and kissed her forehead. When they asked how she survived the freezing night, Lily simply said, "He was there. I think he was hurt. But he laid beside me and didn't leave." The mother wiped her tears, looking over at the lifeless dog on the stretcher. He gave her his life. Daniel walked beside Rex's stretcher as they carried him through the trees. His uniform soaked, his boots coated in mud. But his eyes never left Rex's face. The dog looked peaceful, not in pain, not afraid, just at rest. Back at base, the entire station stood still. The moment Daniel stepped out of the ambulance with Rex wrapped in a thick white blanket. Heads bowed. Officers removed their caps. No one spoke. This wasn't just a police dog coming home. This was a hero returning from his final mission. The report would later read, "Subject: K9 Rex, ID number 8721. Mission: Search and Rescue. Missing child: Lily Thompson. Result: Child located and rescued. Stable condition. K9 Rex was found deceased at the scene. Presumed cause: hypothermia-related cardiac failure. Final disposition: full honors pending. Last action: physical sheltering of victim throughout inclement weather conditions." But no report could capture the image burned into Daniel's mind. Rex's body curled around a shivering child, still protecting her long after his own strength had left him. That evening, Daniel sat beside Rex's blanket-covered body in the quiet room of the ranger station. No one disturbed him. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something small. Rex's original badge tag. Scratched and old. He placed it on the blanket over Rex's chest. "You were the best partner I ever had," he whispered. And I'm not just talking about the job. You were my family, my brother." His voice cracked. "You were brave every day of your life. And today, you gave that life so a little girl could wake up again." Outside, the sun dipped low, casting gold over the grasslands. Inside, Daniel sat in silence, hand resting on the form of the dog who had done everything he'd ever been asked, and more. And now, finally, Rex could sleep. 1 week later, the rain had passed. In its place came a rare stillness across the city, the kind of hush that even traffic seemed to respect. Outside the police department's headquarters, a modest gathering began to form. Officers in dress blues lined the front steps, standing at attention beneath a slowly lowering American flag, its edges catching the morning breeze. Beside the podium, a simple black and white portrait stood framed. In it, Rex, eyes focused and proud, sat beside Officer Daniel Reyes. Their silhouettes locked in a moment from years past. Familiar, steady, whole, today was not just a tribute. It was a farewell. The K9 unit arrived first. Handlers walking in somber step beside their canine partners. German Shepherds, Belgian Malinois, and Labradors, all trained, all alert. But on this morning, even the dogs seemed quieter. Their ears turned forward, their eyes fixed on the space where Rex's memory lingered. The service was simple, deliberate. Nothing dramatic, just truth spoken plainly. The police chaplain led a short prayer, followed by a roll call of fallen officers. Rex's name read aloud among them. Then, the chief stepped aside, and Daniel walked to the microphone. He wore his uniform, polished shoes, tie in place, but his voice, though steady, held the weight of a man holding back a tide. He looked out across the sea of officers. The families, the children. His gaze settled on Lily Thompson, seated in the front row between her parents. A small wreath of white lilies clutched in her lap. Then he began. Rex wasn't just my partner. He wasn't just a K9. He was a cop. He was my friend. He was my brother. And in the end, he was a hero. He paused, swallowing hard. They say dogs don't understand sacrifice. That they don't know what death means. I don't believe that. I think Rex knew exactly what he was doing that night. He found Lily. He shielded her with every ounce of warmth he had left. And when help came, he had given all he had. He didn't bark. He didn't move. He just stayed. Because that's what heroes do. A breeze passed. A few birds called overhead. Daniel took a breath and looked at Lily. Because of Rex, a little girl gets to grow up. She gets birthdays, and stories, and snow days. That is the legacy he leaves behind. That is the life he gave. He stepped back. No music played. Just silence. The deepest kind. Then Lily rose. The little girl walked softly across the front lawn, her hand trembling slightly as she approached the portrait of Rex. A small platform had been set up beside it, nothing grand. Just a place to leave something behind. She knelt and placed the wreath at the base of the frame. Attached was a note, written in a child's neatest scrawl. "You saved me. I will never forget you. Lily." No one spoke. Some bowed their heads. Others wiped tears they didn't try to hide. Daniel stepped forward and placed a hand gently on her shoulder. She leaned into him, silent and strong, as only children know how to be. Later that day, once the crowd had dispersed and the speeches were done, a smaller group gathered behind the station in the courtyard. There stood a bronze statue, recently installed, sunlight casting shadows across the fresh stone. It was small, simple, Rex, captured in mid-sit, ears perked, posture alert. His eyes were carved with detail, focused and wise. Beneath him, engraved in polished steel, Rex, the last mission was your greatest. Daniel stood beside it, hand resting on the edge of the base. Beside him, the captain, the chief, several canine handlers, and Lily with her parents. This isn't just for Rex, the chief said quietly, this is for every silent hero. Every one of them who gives more than we ever ask. Daniel nodded. But this one saved a life with nothing left to give. Lily stepped forward one last time. She reached out, her small fingers tracing the shape of the dog's bronze ear. Then she looked up at Daniel. Will he be okay up here? She asked softly. Daniel knelt beside her. He's not up there, he said, pointing to the statue. She blinked. He's not. Daniel smiled. He's in here, he said, tapping her chest gently. And every time you're scared, every time you're brave, he'll be right next to you. She looked down at the sculpture again. Thoughtful. Then she nodded. Okay. That night, the station lights glowed dimly. Inside, papers shuffled, radios buzzed, and another shift rolled into the darkness. But in the courtyard, all was still. The statue stood beneath the moon, surrounded by silence and memory. No sirens, no footsteps, just the echo of a final mission completed. And the quiet promise of a hero never forgotten.
Thank you for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please comment 1. And if you didn't, just hit like. See you in the next videos.